right, well, welcome. I know we're competing with a very fun presentation downstairs, so thank you all for being here, and please move in. We do have a microphone, which I'll pass around. So my name is Nancy Brune, and I am the moderator for this amazing panel. I know some of you may have read the bios of our panelists, but I just want to introduce them and underscore what a great group of women that we have with some really diverse experiences. So first we have Dr. Michele Freeman, who began her law enforcement career in 1992 with the City of Las Vegas Department of Public Safety as a corrections officer. She served as corporal, sergeant, lieutenant before she was finally appointed chief in 2011, and she held that position almost 10 years before her last retirement. My only regret is she retired 2 years before I was sworn in as city councilwoman for Ward 6. So my regret is that I didn't have a chance to serve with you, so we'll look forward to getting you to, yeah. So Michele earned her Doctor of Public Policy degree, a master's degree in public administration, and a master's certificate in public administration, as well as a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, all from our great UNLV. She remains active in several organizations, she also volunteers for many nonprofit organizations, including the American Federation for Suicide Prevention, Nevada chapter. She is recognized as a helper with a compassionate heart, and her motto is to lead with love. She leads by example with her commitment to developing others and seeking opportunities for self-improvement. So again, we're excited to have her with us. Thank you. Our next amazing speaker or panelist is Karen Ponce, who is a licensed financial professional passionate about helping others make the right financial decisions through education. She educates and helps families plan for 3 main areas of life: becoming ill, dying too soon, or living a long and healthy life with adequate savings, which I know is a challenge all of us struggle with. Karen teaches families and business owners the importance of building a strong financial foundation so it can weather any unexpected events. Though many women want to be independent and financially savvy, statistically, women score lower on financial literacy tests, have more debt, and are living longer without enough retirement savings. Our next speaker is Shane Young, who is passionate about educating, counseling, and providing exceptional value and service to the community. Shane is dedicated to empowering others to make well-informed decisions for themselves, their loved ones and children, and their businesses, as well as other assets, keeping families and business owners out of court and conflict, providing true peace of mind, and achieving goals such as protection, legacy, and generational wealth. She graduated magna cum laude from Pepperdine University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration and holds a law degree from Boyd School of Law. Shane was recently featured as a top businesswoman in Nevada by Vanity Fair, Fortune 500, Forbes, and Entrepreneur magazine. She's been selected for the 40 Under 40 Award by In Business and named among the legal elite by Nevada Business Magazine. And then our last panelist, as I pull it up on my phone. Actually, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Christal Allen-Harrahill. I'm a certified life and relationship coach, native Las Vegan, and this city is my home, and this is where I work and raise my family. I'm really excited to be here today and just talk to you all a little bit about, our topic of the Great Balancing Act. My work that I do on a daily basis is really helping professional women stop having the same fight with their spouse over and over again. And what I do is I empower women to really get them to a place where they have emotional freedom, right? Emotional independence in their lives, in their relationships, because I know women are change makers. And when we take care of ourselves, everyone benefits.
Thank you. I'm sorry, my last agenda did not have you added as a panelist. So, all right. So I'm going to start with some questions, and then we'll open. I'm a big fan of engagement and interaction, so we'll ask a couple of questions, and then we'll open it up for audience questions, and we'll just sort of go back and forth to have a conversation. I really do want this to be a conversation. So let me just start by asking each of you in your own words to share with the women in the room a little bit about your professional background and experiences, and how and how it led you to assist others with finding that balance between living life today and having fun and amazing experiences, but also planning for tomorrow, thinking about retirement and long-term financial security. So who would like to start?
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the introduction. I'm originally from Guatemala, so Spanish is my first language. I'm going to try my best to translate everything in my head before it comes out. So thank you for understanding. It's funny. I never thought that I was going to be in the financial industry. I graduated as a kindergarten teacher because I wanted to make an impact in the community. And I always thought that teaching kids, can make a difference. But then I had to move to the United States. And as an immigrant, you come here with one big goal, and it's to make money. So I ended up working in different places you don't even imagine, different careers, until I landed to this one 2 years ago. So I'm a newbie. All you guys have a lot of experience. So my main goal is to balance my life, which is not. It's funny. I was talking about this with my daughter last night. If there's a balance, and then we figured out that there's no balance. We all have 24 hours a day, and we have to divide it, between work, family, ourselves, and then we also have to sleep, right? So I try to do my best in every aspect that I'm working on. If it's at work, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing my best. If it's at home, I'm going to do quality time with my family. And if it's to myself, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing something that I feel proud and happy to. So that's the way I find balance. Hopefully that answered the question.
I was thinking about, as you were sharing a little bit of your story, how we as women sometimes don't even realize our own power. And I was thinking, you're not a newbie, right? Don't even discount that part of yourself, right? Because we have such an influence, right, in our lives. We influence, who buys toothpaste in your household? You probably are the one who are deciding whether it's Crest or Colgate, something as simple as that. And so I think, when we think about balancing in all of these sessions, we have kind of come to the common agreement that there really is no balancing act, as you just said. It's a matter of allowing yourself to have the human experience of being where you are while keeping an eye on where it is that you want to go. So many times I believe we have moments where if we look at our past and we use that as a way to tell us what we can and can't do in our future. And so I think that's something that it's important for us to keep an eye out on and be careful of how we are believing and thinking about what we're capable of in regards to our future goals and wants and desires. And when you have moments where you're having doubts, or your plan isn't going the way that you would like it to go, I think taking a step back and remembering that the 50-50 is a part of the journey, right? You're going to have some good and negative experiences, but when you have the negatives, don't make that mean anything bad about yourself or what you have decided or what it is that you're trying to achieve. Remember that it's a part of the process, and allowing yourself to experience those emotions while you're trying to achieve whatever it is that you want in your future.
Hi, everyone. So for me, I'm originally from New York, and I got to get that out because you're going to be like, what is going on with you, right? So I'm in Vegas, and I've been in Vegas now since '89, but I still have a little bit of New York inside of me. So for me, when I first moved out here, I had to realize I need to recalculate and balance myself. Because when I came from New York, I would just say it as it is, not thinking that you didn't want the honest truth, the raw, honest truth. And when I realized suddenly that not what I was saying was being received, or what I was saying wasn't being received the way I intended it to be received, I had to look in the mirror and say, you got to balance yourself, girl, because you're not balanced. So I think of balance a little differently. It started with me. I give you the New York background so you can understand a little bit where I'm coming from, but I also don't believe balance means 50-50. I think balance just means constantly having the balls being juggled and catching them, and that's balancing, right? So it doesn't there. So I know a lot of people don't believe in balance because how do you balance? Bless you. However, the other thing is there is this man, he's named Dan Thurman, and he talks about being off balance on purpose. So if you think about that, and you think about what he's suggesting to constantly be off balance on purpose. And where you're at, right, be where your feet are at, and what you look at, I'm kind of going to piggyback a little bit of what we heard. What you focus on is what gets your attention at that time. It doesn't mean that you're not balancing because it's not exactly equal. So this little bit of balance, but off balance on purpose kind of mindset helps you to recognize there's no such thing as perfection. There's no such thing as 50-50 equal balance, but that doesn't mean we can't achieve a balance in life.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shane Jasmine Young. I'm an attorney, and I actually was born in New York, but I moved here. I was born in the Bronx. And my family moved here when I was very young, so I grew up here in Las Vegas, and my dad was actually an entrepreneur and started his own business, and he hired a lawyer to help him, and unfortunately, the company was stolen from him. And so that was really what sparked my interest in entrepreneurship and, financial planning, because we had no plan. Everything was invested into this business, and we lost everything. And even though I was young, I was the oldest of three. So my dad shared a lot about that journey with me, but it also gave me the perspective that I needed so that I could avoid those types of mistakes and not put myself at risk in the same way. And so education was what my family really encouraged. And so I did, I focused on school. I was, the typical firstborn, straight A's. I graduated from Green Valley High School in 97. Okay, we got a Gator over here. All right. I was a valedictorian. I actually met my husband in high school. And all of you know Sandra Douglas Morgan, who was speaking earlier, the Raiders president. My husband and Sandra grew up together. So Sandra and I have been friends since high school. Yeah, and we went to law school together. So it's been nice to see, so many people that are from Vegas flourishing and doing so many great things in the community. But I went to law school here also. I started law school actually, and I already had 2 kids. So when I graduated from undergrad, my husband and I, who was actually my boyfriend at the time, we hadn't gotten married yet, we found out that I was pregnant. And so that was one of those things where it's like, oh shoot, well, that's not what we planned for. And what do we do now? Because we didn't have resources. And so I think, at that point, it was, all right, we've got to make decisions so that, because we've got a family to worry about, and it wasn't just one baby that I was pregnant with. We found out that I was having twins the week that I graduated from Pepperdine. So we came back here, thankfully, with the support of our family. I was able to go to law school. I started law school on their first birthday. And my goal was really to provide financial security for my family, because I didn't have that growing up. And, things were really rough, where the lights, got cut off, and I had to walk to a payphone to ask my family members to send money, So those were experiences that shaped me and made me, appreciate the things that we have now. But also, I never wanted my family to experience that. And so I really made it a point to set goals and try to achieve, to the best of my ability. But what I realized along the way is that the path that you set out sometimes is not the path that is meant for you, right? And you start on one path, and then you end up going, a completely different direction, which is kind of what happened with me, even though I started off in the big law firm, working for a big firm. I wasn't satisfied doing that work because I was representing, big businesses. I was making good money, which was great, but it wasn't fulfilling to me. And so fast forward several years now, 15 years at the time, I started my own firm, and now I get to do the type of work that I really love that touches the community, where it involves things like this, what we're talking about, planning ahead and planning for the contingencies that we all need to be aware of, if we're in an accident or if something happens, if we lose a loved one, what are the things that need to be taken care of for our families, for our children, for as with respect to the assets that we've accumulated. So I think that all of these experiences that I've had in the course of my childhood into my adulthood have really shaped the perspective that I have and really why I focus on these things, because I think it's important that we have these conversations and we share these stories, because a lot of people, will you'll look at us on the panel and you're like, oh yeah, like she's a lawyer, she's this, she's that, and you don't know the story and the struggle behind what it really takes. And so when we face those challenges, I think it's important that we just keep that perspective and know that things will need to be adjusted at times.
So I'd love to stay on the topic of balancing and really pick up on what you said, Shane. I'd like for you all to think about when you started thinking about financial goals and retirement, and then how that has shaped or informed or how you've balanced that against your career goals. And then based on that, what advice would you give to our audience, our young and older women here, about when you should start thinking about retirement? And, in my own, sort of in the last couple of weeks, I've started thinking about it because I've spent my whole life doing nonprofit work or consulting, so there's been no 401k associated with any of those things. And then I get to the city and I see all these folks who are 50 years old retiring because they started working at a government agency when they were 21, and they have this amazing PERS, retirement, and can start a second career. And I thought to myself, gosh, did I do it all wrong? I didn't even think about financial security because I was living my best life and working in the community. And I know Magda's been here. We've been on nonprofits together. And so I would love to know your perspective on, how you thought about financial security and how it shaped your professional choices and how you tried to balance what you love to do with the need to take care of your families. And then based on that, what advice would you have for our audience members here? Why don't we start with you, Chantel?
It's okay. So, I want to share that I was, I think, a little bit late to the game with financial literacy. Prior to being an entrepreneur, I started my business in 2014, and prior to that, I spent about 10 years in higher education, and the retirement plan that I had from higher ed, I ended up making the very wise decision of cashing that out to pay off credit card debt. Right, big mistake, but I thought that that to get rid of the bad debt, right, it was worth the major penalties of cashing out that money. Of course, looking back, I would do things differently, but I think it is important to share mistakes like that happen. When you know better, you do better, as we were talking in the last session. So it's so important to basically ask questions, before you make big decisions like that. And we talk about making sure that they're trusted advisors, trusted people who you can go to and ask questions before making major financial decisions. And in regards to my career choice and how that impacts financial planning, one of the things that I love about being an entrepreneur, and trust me, if you know entrepreneurship, it's not always like a smooth road, right? But one great thing is that there's no ceiling. We talk about the glass ceiling with women especially. There is no ceiling as an entrepreneur. As much value as you are willing and able to put into the marketplace that meets a need for people that they desperately need, and want and are willing to pay you for, you can make great money. And so, I have since been able to recoup and surpass the amount that I, really took out against myself years ago. And so that's a huge blessing. And interestingly enough, too, I think in our society today, the conversation around retirement and retirement age is different for some, because some people are thinking I don't even imagine myself really retiring in the traditional way. I don't want to retire and go sit on a beach and hang out for 40 years, right? Because we're living longer, that type of thing. And so I think being really specific and understanding what retirement means for you, and then reverse engineering that, having someone have that conversation with you about, okay, this is what I plan for my life to look like. How can I make this happen? What do I need to do today to take those baby steps to see my dream come true?
Retirement. In my country, there's not a lot of education regarding this. So when I came to United States, I have to adjust a lot. Have to learn the system. I had to learn everything, starting like getting a Social Security, paying taxes. I didn't know anything. So I made a lot of mistakes at the beginning, but I had my goals, right? So I came when I was 19, and I was able to buy my house when I was 23. So I worked myself, to get to that goal. Making mistakes, it wasn't easy, right? And then I wanted to play investor, right? And before 2008, I invested in a few properties, and then I lost everything. So I have been learning the wrong way because education, right? That's why I'm so concerned about it. And I have 2 little kids that I want them to be educated before they take a decision. So being an immigrant, it's a little bit harder, not only being a woman, because we work hard to get to our positions, but being an immigrant, it's even harder because you have to learn, the system and how it works for you. So that's why I ended up in the financial industry, because there's a lot of need in my community, to learn about this in our own language. That's why we are very hard workers. We have 1 job, 2 jobs, a part-time, a second part-time, and we start entrepreneurship because we need the extra cash, but we don't know where to put the money. And then something happens and everything goes down the drain, all the hard work. And that's why my purpose is to make a difference in my community, and to start with myself and my family so I can teach from there. Thank you.
So I learned kind of what not to do about retirement and planning from, my parents' experience, where they would at certain times have money, they'd have resources, and then they wouldn't have it. And so really by the time that I graduated from college, I had close to $50,000 worth of debt, in credit card debt, because it was expenses that I put on the credit card for my family. And so I think just coming into this young adulthood and trying to figure out my life as a young mom, as a wife, and broke, but not just broke, but in debt, like it was such it was a struggle to dig myself out of that hole. And thankfully, I had certain people in my life that at the time, like one of them was my aunt, who said, okay, well, now you got this great job. You're a lawyer, and you need to start a 401k, and you need to close all these credit cards and take them away from your family. And, you've got to start looking out for yourself. And I think, culturally, that's been something that, I felt an obligation to provide. I was in a position to help, and that's something that we have to be careful about too, because once you kind of get yourself out of a situation and you're on the next level, there are going to be people that will try to pull you down, and they will rely on you, or they will be parasitic, and that's a constant struggle that I have with trying to separate that, but that's a story for another day. So one of the things that I was able to do, especially after starting my own firm, which I did have to put everything, all of my retirement, everything that I had saved into this business, was learning how to trust someone else with guiding me. And thankfully, my financial advisor is actually here. Lindsay Freeman, stand up. She just spoke on the last panel. Yeah. So Lindsay, I mean, being a lawyer, there are so many financial advisors, that will come and try to approach us because they're like, oh, these are good clients. Like, really not so much. But I found Lindsay through just being connected, years later, and I'm so grateful to have her, because not only does she help me with my personal finances and planning for retirement, which, as you mentioned, she helped me basically like look forward and then back out. What are the things that we need to do today so that you can live the lifestyle that you want? What does that look like for you? Because retirement, is different. It looks different for different people. So I think finding someone like that can really guide you and you can trust to put forth that plan is really important. And then the double bonus of being able to work with someone like Lindsay with my profession is that I'm not a financial advisor, but the work that I do has so many financial implications with my clients that are either wealthy or not wealthy, and they're wanting to make sure that whatever wealth they accumulate or whatever assets they have don't go to the government and don't get taxed unnecessarily, and that they are able to maximize their finances from this point moving forward. So I'm able to refer those clients to Lindsay and say, like, look, these are important discussions. You should be talking about, what your plan is, what an IRA is, and life insurance, and all of these really important things that many people don't think that they need, or they don't understand the true value of it. And so really just getting educated on those things, I think, is important. And I've learned so much, not just being a lawyer, but being exposed to my collateral, professionals like financial advisors and CPAs. I think having good people around you to guide you and be able to support you is important.
So I agree. Absolutely, you need to surround yourself with people that know more about it than you know. Even when you know a lot, I think it's important to have somebody that you can confide in and that they can direct you in your personal plan. And your personal plan doesn't always have to stay the same. So as you shift through life, sometimes you need to shift your personal plan. So for me, the greatness is my father was very financially astute. He was very smart. He was very good about it. He had somebody to guide him through his entire life. Well, he was back in New York. I moved out here. I started my job. I didn't have any money, and I didn't have any money to really put away, right? However, working for the city of Las Vegas, we had a pretty lucrative plan. However, I kept on waiting. Well, I need to talk to Dad. I need to make sure that what I invest in is actually what I should invest in, because the level of trust for me with all of my money to just say, oh, okay, you're a financial planner, you work for the city of Las Vegas, or contracted with the city of Las Vegas, here's my money, and just tell me where to put it, I was uncomfortable. So years passed before I even started to put away the money that I should have put away. So now, fast forward, I still am very, very grateful for what we had. However, I should have started a lot earlier. The other thing is we're never going to have, unless we're bazillionaires, right? We're never going to be in a position where we have so much money, especially young, as when I was starting out. I started out when I was 23 years old. And so as starting out, I'm 23, I'm never going to have even a dime. But you know what? I really do. Because that money just got wasted on probably fast food back in the day, right? And so if I would have taken even, Starbucks especially right now. I wasn't turned on to Starbucks back then. However, now I love, right? So, but you take the money and it adds up very quickly, even just a little bit. Even if you can only take, even if it's a dollar is more than nothing. So even if you start somewhere, and especially if you are involved in a plan that helps you do it. So for the city that I worked for, they allowed us to have a plan. So if I just took some of that money, which I never saw, so it didn't come out of my paycheck and then I had to put it back, it just came automatically out of my paycheck. So I'm never going to see it, until I go to withdraw, which is later down the years, right? I'm not going to miss it. So I always think about it, and I always think about, yes, I should have done it earlier. I'm grateful that I did it finally. I literally, to the point, went down with friends and listened to the financial planner and said how to invest the money and walked out where they signed up, and I walked away. What? Are you kidding me? Right? So for me, I would say, and I'll even take it a step further, when you're looking at even life, right? When it's time for holidays and you want to spend potentially gifts, you want to buy some gifts for your family members, your friends, and now it's like, oh my gosh, the holidays are here. I want to have people over, or I want to have a gift to be able to give a person that I really like or love. Well, if you even start a separate financial kind of pocket for that, right? Like a holiday spending fund, which really, bless you, I make people sneeze, I think, when I speak. It's so weird. So when you're thinking about it, and I did this one year, and I was like, wow, when I first started doing this is incredible, because now I don't have to scurry around at the ends of the year to try and find out money, like to find money for gifts for my family, close friends, and others. So I just think that learning, and I think we kind of had a little bit of a theme where maybe we started a little late, or we didn't start on the exact path that maybe we would have loved to have started, so that we could flourish a little bit quicker. But I think those are all really good learned lessons, and for me, that's my share of, get somebody you trust. Like you said, it's so imperative to have a financial planner that you can trust, and I'm grateful that I was able to achieve that eventually. Yes.
You say so many great things. It made me think of something else, because I have two of my team members here, Gabby and Kayla, and they're very young. And so one of the things that, I wish I would have known, when I was in my 20s or starting out my career, is to really take advantage of the things like if your employer does 401k matching, which we do. So make sure you guys are putting in, because that's free money. Those are things, there are other career paths where you may not get those types of opportunities, but when you do have them, utilizing them is so important.
Great point.
We've covered a lot of ground. Are there any burning questions for our panelists at this point? I just want to stop and see if someone would like to make a comment or ask a question. Yeah, Diane, go ahead.
I'll speak briefly to that. I do think it is important to have moments where you reward yourself for your discipline, right? So it's like you still have that base amount, whatever that amount is. Like I remember, I think Lindsay or Jerry was saying, make sure you at least have like your 6-month emergency fund, right? And then perhaps, and we were talking about, thinking about like Christmas and maybe having like a Christmas fund, maybe you put some money aside in, a little vacation fund or whatever that is, so you do feel like you can not have to be so tight with the money that you are bringing in, and you are able to enjoy your efforts and the earnings that you're getting from it. So that's personally how I do it. So that's about as far as I can speak to it. Yeah, did you want to? Yeah.
Also from experience, I've been learning that learning where my money is going. If it's actually adding value to my life, right, or to my kids' life, when I started learning about a little bit more about financial, I told my kids we're gonna start a retirement plan, right? I know that you're very little, but instead of buying toys, that are gonna be on the floor in the next week, and every time that I see a toy on the floor, it's $20, $30, and it kind of hurts. So I told them, listen, we're gonna start this plan. You might thank me, 10, 20, 30 years from now. You might be mad right now, but it's for our own good. So, now what I do is I give them the money, the allowances, so they distribute the money, for retirement, for fun, a vacation. They actually do it with that little budget. They're, separating. So that's how I've been doing it. Wow. I give them cash, and we go deposit the money to their account, and then they can do transfers too. So they're learning all that. Yes, because there are minors, they have to be under your name. They can see it, yes. If you give them allowance, they can see it. Yeah, it's a good start. Yeah. So no more toys in my house.
So I'll kind of add to that where one thing that I would encourage all of us to do is, when we're starting out, especially for people that are kind of new into their professional career, right? You start out making a certain amount of money, and you are able to live off of that, right? You find a way to make it work, and then you get a raise, and then it's all of a sudden like all of your expenses are raised, and like you kind of find yourself in this cycle, right? And so one thing that I wish I would have been better about is managing, keeping my expenses at a certain level, and then as I'm making more money, I save more, or I invest more, or I use that instead of just spending more money. I like to spend. Lindsay knows that. So, but I do now that I am older and I have a lot more responsibilities with kids and things. I think that there is a balance where, you want to, as you are doing better and you are making more money, you enjoy life, right? You want to enjoy things, but also be aware that, you want to be planning for these contingencies and, your future. Hopefully we all live many years and we have a long life ahead of us. And because people are living so much longer, across the board, and bigger numbers, it's important that we start thinking about these things a lot younger.
I really love everything that was said, and I love all the ideas, particularly, all of them really. And I think it's important to recognize that we don't know, right? What we do know is that all of us are going to die at some point. So we want to enjoy life, right? We want to incorporate that in, and we don't know our date typically, right? So we do want to have, I love that conversation, because we do want to have this balance of spending and saving. And how do you do that? I don't think it's a cookie cutter approach, and I don't think it's the same for everyone, and I don't even think it's the same necessarily for an individual throughout their entire life and career, right? So I'm recently retired, and I am making less than I was making when I was working. So I didn't realize that I had to take that into consideration, but I learned that I have to take that into consideration, because even though I had a great plan, and I'm very, very grateful for the ability to be in a position that I'm in, however, it changed life, and you don't realize that it's going to change life until I felt it more. And I as well like to spend. Just ask my husband. Yes. So, but I think I love what you said, and I love the idea with the children, having it like a family, really, so you're instilling that into your children and teaching them, this is what life looks like, and this is opportunities for you. And hopefully they caught on quick, because no toys, and now they're in the bank, right? That's pretty cool. But yeah, I totally agree, and I love what has already been said.
So I'd love to stay on this idea of planning a little bit more. I love your expression, Christal, of reverse engineering. So I know there are a lot of financial planners in the room. Of those who are not working in the financial planning space, how many of you actually have a financial planner, if you're in a nonprofit or... So just a few. I know I don't. And so I'd love to do a deeper dive about the planning process. What do you recommend in terms of goals, right? Like how specific should those saving, investing goals be? And then how often should someone check in, right? I could imagine if someone had stock, they'd be tracking it every day, which could get really crazy. You'd stress because your portfolio, decreased by 10%. So what's sort of a good, time lapse for checking in, and what sorts of indicators or how detailed should those plans be, and what sorts of things should you be tracking and thinking about?
So for me, the person that I was dealing with and still do for financial planning told me to quit looking at it all the time, because I was obsessing and looking constantly, and oh my God, I lost 10 cents, or whatever it was. It was ridiculous. So I was getting in my own head, and it was too much. So I think it's important. Not to obsess. I think it's important. Obviously, I'm not a financial planner, and I use one. I think it's important for you to converse with that person, to move your investments around based on your life. So for me, when I first started out, I was more aggressive as a younger person. And then as I started to approach, and basically she said to me, towards the last 3 years of your retirement, we need to move the majority of your funds into a more conservative funds. So, and I did, and I trusted. I had worked with this person for a long time, and I trusted the person, and I had already, built up some, but I made it a little bit more conservative. In addition to that, I think it's really important to just reassess. I think it's very important to have specific goals. I think so. You want to assess yourself, see what you want and what's important to you, where your balance would be, and be very specific. I love this. This is kind of off topic, but I'm going to bring it in. It's going to make sense. So there is a journal, right? So a lot of things are really important to write them down, right? We hear a lot of times, write things down because that's how you make them happen. Whether it's an affirmation, you stick a sticky and you see it all the time, or whether it's something you want to do, you journal. So for me, there's this thing called the Passion Planner, and it's like a life journal, okay? It's a passion planner. It can be used like this, but it can be used in other things too. So I'll give you an example. You start out and you roadmap. So the roadmap is what's important to you in the next 3 months, what's important to you in the next year, what's important to you in the next 3 years, and what's your lifetime important goal. So you can transfer this into financial planning as well as just life planning and what's important as you move into the retirement space. Because in my opinion, you need to start planning the day, like yesterday, right? The day you start working, you need to start planning your retirement, or even before if you can get educated on it. So once you do this, you take a look at what you wrote and you basically set a timer. It's like for 5 minutes. And then once you set the timer, you just look at all the things that you want to do within 3 months, and then 1 year, and then 3 years, and then the 5 years. Or excuse me, not 5 years, lifetime. And so once you do that, then you go ahead and you put your pen down after the 5 minutes, or your pencil, or your crayon, or whatever you're using, and then you go ahead and now you circle in each of those areas, right? The 3 month, the 1 year, the 5, or the 3 year, and then the lifetime. What right now is the most important for you? And then that's what you're going to concentrate on right now. And then you do a weekly check-in, and then you do a monthly check-in. So you're constantly watching what your plan is, and it could work with your financial space as well as just life in general. And it's been very valuable, and I'm all about mine's well color-coded, and it's well organized and crazy like that. But anyway, it's a great tool, and there's so many tools, like you do you, what's comfortable for you, but it's important we start somewhere.
I agree with what Michele said. I think it's a good way to hold yourself accountable. When you set those goals and you make them real, they're not just in your head. For me, I tried those types of things, but then I would, just kind of fall off, or I'd be distracted. And so that's where I really do have to hold myself accountable in a different way. And that's where just finally finding, a good financial advisor to help me, stay on track. That's important. And then I'm going to make a little plug for estate planning, because we're talking about planning, right? So how many of you are over 18? Is everyone over 18? Yes, right? Yeah, I'm not. Just kidding. So everyone's over 18. So we're all legal adults here, right? How many of you have an estate plan? Okay, so what is an estate plan, right? So an estate plan, a lot of people think of like a will or a trust, or sometimes people think that it's just something that's not attainable because it's for the people that have a lot of money, that are wealthy. But estate planning really needs to be part of all of our lives, because if something happens, if we left here today and we were in an accident and we couldn't talk to the doctors or make our own decisions or pay our bills or take care of our children, that is where an estate plan comes in. So I think really the first part for me, because of course this is my passion, is starting at, just really like getting your legal and financial affairs in order. And it starts by looking at your life, where it is right now, and identifying what your goals are, where you currently are, so what assets do you have, making an inventory. So we actually do this as part of our estate planning process with clients, doing an inventory of the things that you have, and you will actually be surprised by how much you have. You don't realize that bless you, it's not you, it's me. you don't realize how much you actually have until you start really taking those into account. And then you have the resources. Of course, I'm here to help. You've got financial advisors that can get you on the path to not just spinning your wheels, but actually staying on a plan and really growing the money that you have, making the smart decisions, financially and otherwise, but also protecting those assets. That's a really important thing. A lot of times we focus on, generating income and accumulating things, but what good is that if it ends up going to the government, right? What good is that if it gets taxed, right? So that's where I really encourage all of you that are here today. I'm so glad to see you and that you've made the choice to be here, to invest in yourself. And it starts by really utilizing these resources and connections that you have. I have a table out here, so we've got resources that are available, and we've got an on-demand webinar that's 60 minutes that will go over like really important things that are applicable to all of our lives. So I really hope that you take advantage of those resources and contact us.
Shane, I'm really happy you went the estate planning route because I wanted to jump on that train as well. And I think, kind of to your point about the conversation around reverse engineering, like look at what, the trajectory of where you want, your life to go and things that you want to protect, that type of thing, and then think about what you need to do right now to safeguard those items. Like, for example, my husband and I have a rental property, and our thought is that, one day that'll be a property that our son can live in. But even thinking about, even connecting with like someone like you who can help educate you on how you can need to protect, because when you hear someone maybe say like a rental property, they're like, oh, they're making money or something like that. But with that also comes risk. Right? So if you don't maybe have those properties like in a series and you get sued, then your primary residence is at stake now, right? So it's so important to really connect with someone who can help safeguard you as you make those life decisions, so that way you and your family really are protected. So thank you for starting that conversation.
Well, I'm just going to add a little bit to it because those are amazing answers. I think it's just sitting down and write down your goals, where you want to be, what you want to do, right? And then find a way to get to that goal. And like you said, 3 months goal, 6 months goal, a year goal, and checking often so you can, if you're going off the track, you can pull yourself back in. Also, having a financial structure and a plan, it gives you peace of mind. Because if something happens, that everything is in order. So there's no cure, for critical illnesses, but there's cure for financial ill. We just need to educate ourselves, and start somewhere. That's what I wanted to add.
So we have a few minutes left. Yes, there's a great question in the back coming. Go ahead.
What's the difference between a financial planner and a financial advisor? Lindsay could answer that.
Our new panelist, Lindsay. That's a great question. There could be a whole panel on that question because I'm sure many of you have heard the number one reason for divorces actually is disagreements about financial issues. And
Yeah, it's a great question because I've been married. So we just celebrated our anniversary. We met in high school, so it's been 28 years as of Saturday. So thank you. And we really had no idea. You know, we were teenagers. We were 16 and 17, and we had some kind of bad examples of like how to handle finances in our family. And so the two of us ended up just having conversations as we were going through, and thankfully, with my husband, he's very generous, and we both kind of are of the same mindset. So when we were leveling up and we had our professional careers and we were making money, whenever our family needed something, we were the ones that were called, right? And so that, I think, can cause a lot of stress sometimes too, because it's like, okay, well, we're giving all these things, but we still have debt. We had this conversation yesterday. It was like, we have family members that are constantly asking for help, but yet like it's not like we're debt free. We make more money now, but we have a lot of debt still. So I think having honest conversations with your spouse or your partner, and really getting on the same page and trying to come together as a unit when you have the ability to communicate on some hard topics, it just allows you to really to be able to build from there. And it's not always easy. Sometimes it takes years, right? One other thing that I would mention is that, I just lost my train of thought. What was your question again about your spouse? How do you? Oh, yes. So sometimes we don't want to have these conversations, right? And a lot of times, women in particularly, and I see this in the work that I do, they have no idea what the finances are. And it's gotten better, times are different, but I still see it, a lot of times. It's mainly with the older generation, where it was the male or the husband that was handling things, and then he passes away, and then the wife has no idea, what to do, or where the bank accounts are, or where the retirement or the life insurance policies, all those things. So I think really being engaged in your own finances, and it starts with you, whether you're married or not, starts with you being accountable, to yourself. And then as you do have a partner, or you do have a spouse, really being engaged in that process and not just leaving it to someone else to plan for, like really understanding. And, I know that you don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen, right? I handle the finances for our family, although I would rather not. But, because he would rather not have to pay the bills and all of that. But I like to know, how much money we have in the bank. And that's something else that I've learned to do also. So there was this tip from some type of money type of coach, and he said, before you get on your phone, like a lot of us, the first thing that we do is we pick up our phones in the morning to see who's texted us, who's emailed us. I'm guilty of that because I don't like getting flooded with, emails and things throughout the day. But what he said was, before you start checking on those other things, look at your bank accounts. Look at where your finances are, and really get in touch with that, and then you're able to really just be more engaged in your own, your own finances. So I think starting with simple things like that, like knowing how much money you have, knowing how much money you're spending, and then as you're growing your wealth, you want to be able to protect that and make sure that you know where things are, so that you're not left in a bad situation. And then just one other thing that I'll add to that is because we see in the work that I do, so many women now are the drivers behind, planning, estate planning and financial planning for their families. We started a group called Women Decision Makers. So a lot of you I know have attended those events. It's a complimentary breakfast that I host every other month. And the next one is May 31st. So Gabby and Kayla can give you more information on that. But the website is ylgwdm.com. And I'd love for all of you to attend. It's such a great opportunity to really, connect with other women, like-minded, support each other, and really get us to, getting into that full mode of control of our own destinies and our own lives.
So I think that was a great answer, of course, and your backgrounds obviously lends to your answer. I think I'll take it a little bit to a sidestep where it's not just so much finances alone. I think having those open, honest conversations, right? There's someone called Marnie Green. She used to talk about performance evaluations. She talks about having fierce conversations. And your fierce conversations should be about life in general. It shouldn't just be about, and that's basically a hard conversation, it shouldn't just be about, okay, now we're at a place with money, we need to have a hard conversation, and I don't even know how to approach you as my significant other or whomever I'm sharing my life with. I think we need to do it in a holistic manner, right? And I think that we need to keep our financial, emotional, mental, friends and family wellness all up, right? Because those are all important things for us to keep, and we should start doing those before we need them. It's kind of like resiliency, right? You're building on your resiliency muscle before you have to like lens, oh my gosh, we're in a situation where I don't know what to do, and now my back's up against the wall, and I have to start having conversations. I don't even know how to have a conversation, let alone now it's money, right? Because money is a very difficult topic to talk about, and we don't always feel the same, right? Whoever our partner is, it's not always the same. We may have difference of opinion. So I think it's important to start building that relationship and those open conversations prior to, and I will tell you from somebody who, recently retired again, I'll say that, it's a whole different world. And when you retire, again, I'm very busy. However, when I retired, I was grieving. So grieving isn't just for death, right? Grieving is also for any kind of loss. And it could even be for a good loss, right? And so for me, when after working almost 3 decades in the city of Las Vegas, same department, loving my city family, I didn't realize the impact. My husband worked there as well, but he retired several years prior to me. So one of the, and I'm kind of piggybacking off of your question, but I'm out of the financial arena, because I just want to kind of share this because it just came to mind. I feel like I'm supposed to share it. You know, when he first retired, people would say to me, here's lesson 101, meaning my retired friends. Lesson 101, don't go home and say to your husband, what'd you do today? Like almost like, did you do anything? Because the definition changes of what you're doing. So for him, who was a high-performing law enforcement officer, having a lot of responsibility, he now is talking about, oh, the bug guy came over. So the first time I heard that, I'm like, that's an event? Like, that's just, I don't understand. But I remembered the advice that I got, be careful on how you approach it, because life looks different from that lens now as you start to move through that space. And retirement isn't it's not a sentence, right? A retirement, like for me, working, I didn't look at it as, oh, it's an hourglass, so I'm just gonna turn it over and hope the time goes quickly. I loved what I did. I miss what I do. I still, it's impactful. I love my city family. And I'm not there, and most of them, probably all of them, don't even think about me ever. However, the key point that I'm trying to make is things look different, and I look at it more of like it's a seesaw, right? Or it's a scale where you're balancing, right? The justice scale, here we are. But you're balancing the scale, and it's going up and down a little bit, and you really should have everything in order prior to needing it to be in order, is my point. And having those conversations, those fierce conversations, and me recognizing I had no idea that we had a nice, beautiful ceremony, last day in uniform, standing there, and flood hit me. I never get to wear my badge again. I never get to put this uniform on again. And I lived for that because I loved serving. And then the next day, when I literally was going and handing in all my stuff to human resources, I left there and I sat in my car with emotions that I'm not that person, and all of a sudden I became that person and didn't realize that was going to be such a transition that I never expected was going to hit me. So I would just say, I know I kind of went a little bit off, but I felt like it's part of the conversation where other things sometimes enter just the finances, and it's a holistic type of approach is where I stand from. So being healthy, and holistic healthy, right? Health is health, mental, emotional, and physical. So thank you for the question.
I know we're over time, but I wanted to see whether Christal and
So thankfully, Personally, my husband and I have joint interests, and I manage our personal finances. But this is what I've learned in regards to my business. It's important to understand your spouse. So my husband is risk adverse, right? So early on in my business, I thought that it was, safe to have those conversations with him about maybe something I wanted to invest in, but I was still doubtful. Wrong move, right? Because he's already coming with the doubt. So it's like the doubt train. We're both riding it, So I think it's important to know your spouse, and not to say, of course, not hiding anything. But what I've done is I've learned to lean on my community of other entrepreneurs who understand the space and the questions that I'm trying to decide upon. So that way I can be a little bit more sure about how I want to think about it and then have that conversation with him. And so I wanted to share that perspective with you. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a little bit to add to it is that marriage is like teamwork, right? Like you have your own business. Being a mom or a dad is having your own business. So look who has what strengths each of you have. Like for example, my marriage, like who is more risky, who's more safe, who likes to handle money, who doesn't like to write the bills, and just be involved, even though you're not the expert, in handling the money, but just be involved so in case something happens, where the money is or where we're going with this. And then, but everything starts, like we have to change generations, right? Because those conversations need to be made even before marriage, when people is dating, people is, even before that, we need to make sure that we have the mindset so it's less trouble, during the lifetime. And I know, most of us might be moms here, so let's make that change, let's start at home and teach the kids, what by experiences.
So unfortunately, we're out of time, and I'm disappointed because I think we could have gone another hour, some really rich themes. I have a couple of questions on, perspectives about being a mom, right? I think as investors and as moms, we put the needs of our kids and family members and extended family over our own and our own financial security. So that could be a whole other panel. So next year maybe. But please, let's give a big, warm thank you to our wonderful panelists for joining us. I think we're going to head downstairs for the final panel.